For the debate, I recognize the member from Burlington.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I'm honoured to rise in this House today to speak in support of the government's motion to recognise the endemic nature of intimate partner violence in Ontario. I'd like to begin by thanking my colleagues on the committee from all parties for the seriousness, compassion, and care they've brought to and continue to bring to this very important work. This committee showed what is possible when the legislature puts politics aside and puts people first. This report represents the voices of countless Ontarians who've lived through intimate partner violence, the families and the children who've been affected by it, and the dedicated professionals and volunteers who unfortunately respond to it every single day. We owe it to all of them to listen, to act, to make real, lasting change, and we owe it to them to be honest about what we're facing. Speaker, we must begin by calling this issue what it truly is. Intimate partner violence is an endemic in Ontario. That word endemic carries enormous weight. It signals that this crisis is not isolated, it's not occasional, it's not temporary. It's woven into the lives of too many people, too many families, and too many communities. It tells us that this violence is not confined to certain households or communities. It is persistent, it is widespread, and it is deeply rooted across our society. It does not surge and recede like a passing storm. It is sustained by structures, attitudes, and inequities that have built up over generations. And because it is persistent, our response must be equally persistent, measured not in days, not in headlines, but in systems, standards, and results. Measured in stability, not symbolism. The numbers bear this out. Police respond to intimate partner violence calls in Ontario every few minutes. Thousands seek safety and shelter or reach out through crisis lines and community programs each year. Many more suffer in silence, unseen or uncaptured in any data. Yet behind every statistic is a person, a mother, a sister, a neighbor, a family member, a coworker, a husband, a sibling. All people who deserve safety, stability, and dignity. The stories through the committee were often heartbreaking, but there were also stories of resilience, courage, and hope. Survivors who came forward not only to be heard, but to ensure that others don't have to endure the same harm. Their courage is a call to action, and it must move us forward with seriousness and humility. Speaker, Ontario's government is committed to protecting survivors, preventing violence, and building stronger, safer communities. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, Minister Parsa, and Associate Minister Williams, we have taken meaningful steps to strengthen supports for victims and to hold perpetrators accountable. We have increased funding for violence against women shelters and sexual assault centres because we know these are often the first places survivors turn when they need safety. We have supported innovative community-based programs that connect survivors to housing, to counselling, and to legal resources, particularly in rural and northern communities where access can be limited. We have expanded collaboration between police, Crown attorneys, and community agencies, ensuring that survivors are not left to navigate complex systems on their own. These are concrete steps, and they are making a difference. But as we all know, meaningful progress does not begin and it does not end with individual programs. It continues through structure, coordination, and long-term planning. And as this report reminds us, the work continues. In committee, we heard the need to strengthen prevention, improve coordination among services, and modernize how we respond to intimate partner violence. Speaker, words matter, and yesterday Associate Minister Williams made an important point about why endemic is the right descriptor. Epidemics erupt suddenly and recede. Endemic problems are chronic, they are predictable, and they are deeply woven into social systems. Calling intimate partner violence an endemic is not about minimizing the harm, it's about naming a reality. This violence has persisted across eras, across cultures. It is intergenerational, and it resists quick and reactive fixes. Speaker, when we use accurate language, we commit to the right kind of solution, long-term, structural, and coordinated solutions. That is how we honor the testimony we heard and the lives we are trying to protect. We also heard from the member for Kitchener South Hespeler about the discipline of finishing the work before us. Speaker, this motion is not a slogan, it is a mechanism. It moves us from listening to implementing. It tells survivors and partners that their contributions will not sit in transcripts. They will be translated into policy, translated into practice, and there will be accountability. Declarations are important, but declarations do not align training, they do not coordinate calendars, and they do not stabilize base funding. A coordinated long-term framework does. This motion is about putting that framework in place so that ministries, partners, police, educators, and service providers can act together consistently and at scale. First is prevention. Prevention is not separate from public safety. It is public safety at its earliest and most effective stage. The committee heard that the first signs of risk appear long before adulthood, in classrooms, in arenas, on sports fields, in families under stress, and in workplaces where isolation or coercion take hold. Teaching respect, consent, and healthy relationships needs to be consistent, age-appropriate, and reinforced over time. When we equip young people with the language to recognize controlling behavior, when coaches model leadership with empathy and accountability, when workplaces provide psychological safety and clear reporting paths, these are early interventions that prevent escalation. Prevention is practical, measurable, and humane, and effective. Second is modernization of the justice system. We did not hear a lack of dedication. We heard a system working at full capacity inside structures designed for another era. Oh, 1 second. Just need. Can you give me a Kleenex? Yep. Sorry, thanks. Sorry about that. We heard a system that is working at full capacity inside structures designed for another era. Police, Crowns, Defence, and victim services are adapting through integrated bail teams. Thank you. Specialized intimate partner violence courts, and better information sharing. Thank you. Modernization in this context means clarity and coordination, standardized risk assessments, consistent reporting, and technology that allows justice partners to see the same facts at the same time. This third is stability for the frontline workforce, through people who answer the phone calls in the middle of the night, who staff shelters, who sit with families in crisis, These professionals are the core of our response. They told the committee that predictable funding is not a luxury, it is safety. Stability reduces turnover, preserves expertise, and ensures continuity for victims. Fourth is data and accountability. We've heard you cannot manage what you do not measure. A provincial data standard, shared indicators, regular public reporting lets ministries and partners evaluate what works, repeat success, and adjust quickly when outcomes fall short. Speaker, the government has also taken significant steps that align with these pillars. We moved quickly to launch Ontario Stands, our action plan to prevent gender-based violence, backed by an historic investment to improve safety, expand culturally appropriate supports, and connect systems so that child protection, policing, healthcare, justice, and education do not work in silos. We expanded that plan with community-based projects, education and awareness, early intervention, service integration, and economic security. We built on that work with a targeted investment to expand access to emergency shelter spaces and strengthen the Family Court Support Worker Program. We renewed and expanded Ontario's anti-human trafficking strategy, and we launched Pathways to Safety, guided by Indigenous women. I'd also like to talk a little bit about what my colleague, the MPP from Thornhill, mentioned earlier, just to talk about some of the other initiatives and legislation that has come forward from this House. So there was something, from the MPP from Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, and MPP from Thornhill tabled a joint private members' bill to stop convicted offenders under Christopher's Law from legally changing their names. This was to prevent sex offenders who have committed horrific crimes from having the ability to hide their identities by changing their names. This private members' bill was captured in Bill 223, the Safer Streets, Stronger Communities Act in 2024, complemented by an investment of $307 million in supporting victims and survivors of human trafficking. There was also Bill 123, or Erin's Law, brought forward by the MPP for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry, that amends the Education Act to require school boards to implement programs for child sexual abuse prevention and reporting. The law mandates that school boards must establish policies to annually engage students in age-appropriate discussions on the topic and provide information to parents and guardians. The law mandates child sex abuse prevention and reporting education in Ontario schools to help prevent abuse through early education. For students, school boards must ensure that students are engaged annually in a developmentally appropriate manner. For parents and guardians, information about child sex abuse prevention and reporting must be made available to them. For staff, teachers, and other school staff must be provided with information each year. And for policy development, each school board is required to establish a policy for these requirements. My colleague, the MPP for Oakville, North Burlington, also brought forward legislation called Kira's Law, which was brought forward and enacted in part of Bill 102, the Strengthening Safety and Modernizing Justice Act, which received royal assent on June 8, 2023. Some of the key aspects of Kira's Law were focused around judicial training. The law mandates that provincial and federal judges receive specific training on the dynamics of intimate partner violence and coercive control. There was an amendment to the criminal code requiring that release orders for accused individuals facing domestic violence charges, a judge must consider the necessity of electronic monitoring to ensure safety. It addressed expanded education, and the goal was to better equip the legal system to recognize and address the complex patterns of abuse in family and intimate partner relationships to prevent tragedies. And then finally, in 2021, the MPP for King Vaughan, brought forward by the former Ontario Minister of Education, brought forward legislation around human trafficking. Focusing on human trafficking prevention education in the elementary health and physical education curriculum. All that, Speaker, just to say, this is not a one and done. We can see by the number of pieces of legislation that have come forward from members of this House over years that this continues to be an important topic. Speaker, the effects of intimate partner violence extend far beyond individual households. It affects children who witness abuse and carry that trauma into adulthood. It strains our healthcare system, our justice system, our social services. Addressing intimate partner violence is not only a moral imperative, it is a matter of public health, economic stability, and community well-being. No single ministry, no single sector can solve this alone. Prevention must always come first, but accountability must never be forgotten. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the frontline workers who show up every day, the shelter staff, the counselors, the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, the police officers, and advocates. Their compassion embodies the very best of Ontario. And to the survivors who shared their stories, we hear you, we believe you, and we will act. Let me return to why finishing this process matters. This motion brings forward the committee's work to the next stage, review, adoption, and tabling, so ministries and partners can plan against a common text with shared definitions, clear recommendations, and timelines. Some may ask, why now? Because the evidence is clear and because survivors deserve action. Speaker, recognizing intimate partner violence as endemic commits us to endurance. It tells us that prevention and response are not projects with start dates or end dates. They are core responsibilities of government, and this motion is the bridge between testimony and implementation. Speaker, progress is possible when we work together, when we listen, and when we act. Intimate partner violence is preventable, addressable, and we all have a role to play. Speaker, let us adopt this report, align our systems, and do the hard, patient work that real change demands. Thank you.